to Wing Chun DC tutorial number 22. This is Ben Cohen here. So today I thought I would go over the first part of the Siu Nim Tau form. So the first part, so what I've done in this video is basically I'm breaking it up into two. So this is the first part of the video, but I'm doing the Siu Nim Tau from different angles. And so the reason why I'm doing this, or different positions rather, I want to start here. So what you're going to see is you're going to see me go through the first part of the Siu Nim Tau. The first way I'm going to do it is in the kind of more traditional stance, which is both feet facing forward. You can see the mouse here. So you've got both hips are facing forward, and my weight is distributed evenly over here. So if you'll notice, my heels are under my shoulders here. They're not wider than shoulder width. They're pretty much directly under my shoulders. I'm using, this is not the traditional Wing Chun stance where the knees are twisted in like that, are inverted like this. The legs are straighter here. I'm practicing using my body frame here, but this is from a kind of a basing position here. So you can practice the Siu Nim Tau in a couple of different ways, and this is one of them. So I'm going to go over the first part of the first form, just facing forward here. So I'm going over the punching. So you'll notice the hand movements that I'm using here. This is what I learned from my instructor Jin Young, and a lot of the kind of flourishes that at the end of the punches here. I'll go back over that again. So if you look at the punch here, you scoop up, go down and up. You don't see that in a lot of Wing Chun styles. You don't see that in Yip Man style. You don't see that in anywhere other than in Hawkins lineage. Why did he put that in? I don't know. Basically, as my understanding of it is, if you go back, if you look at my body, my body is basically, I'm trying to connect internally, and my whole body's connecting. My hips are inverted upwards here, so my hips are kind of engaged and coming forward, almost tucking my hips in. I have a straight spine, and every movement I make has to be, you'll see my body kind of shimmer a little bit, or kind of my body and my hand is connected. So every time I move my hand, you'll see my body, like here when I punch, you'll see right at the top of the extension there. So I did that. This is a Tansao. As my arm comes out, my body kind of is subtle. I'll show you that again. Right at the end of here, there, and there. When I'm doing a Shun Sao to jump Sao, you'll see my body move slightly when I'm doing this. And I go to Fuk Sao, but my body's moving. It's bowing back and forth like that, right? In a lot of styles of Wing Chun, you don't see this. You don't see the bowing of the body and the connection with the arm. You just see the body stays completely still, and the arm does all the movement. So that's not how I was taught how to do the Siu Nim Tau by my instructor, and how Hawkins would do his the Siu Nim Tau as well. So I'm just keeping in line with that when I'm doing this. So you see my body, my arms are kind of connected. There you go. You see my body moving with my arms. So I'm dropping down into Fuk Sao. I'm keeping my elbow in front of my hip. So come back. This is cross arm Pak Sao, palm strike, scoop up. So these are just some flourishes. Okay, so you go on the right arm here. Same thing. Dropping down into Fuk Sao. If you want to look at my I keep making important to keeping first of all my elbows in on the Fuk Sao side here. My shoulders are both pinned back. So the opposite arm, when you're doing a Fuk Sao, or when you're punching with the opposite arm in the Siu Nim Tau, your other hand comes back to your chest. Actually, it should actually come behind your chest, behind your nipple. Really is probably optimal, I would say. And your shoulder cannot come up, so your shoulder has to get pinned down. And over time, I've sort of one of the reasons I think this is good to practice it this way is it basically forces you to, you'll feel your body kind of tighten up when you do this, to make sure to keep your arm backwards here and your shoulder down. You'll feel your body start to connect itself. It becomes kind of quite interconnected. So this is, and then you see here that my shoulder, both shoulders are back here. So this is one of the major points of the Siu Nim Tau, I think, is to practice this interconnectedness in your body when you're doing this. Palm strike here. So there you go. I finished. This is the first part of the first form. So I've done, again, what I've done is I've gone over it with my facing forward, everything facing forward. So now what I think, this is going against a lot of Wing Chun tradition, but what you can do is I think you can practice this form with rooting as well, right? So you can practice, rather than standing in a base, you can practice shifting your weight. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over that first part of the first form and I'm going to shift my weight. Okay, so I'm going to start over again. And so this is just another way of practicing the Siu Nim Tau. So what I haven't done, I'm not doing the whole thing. Otherwise it would just take me, this would be too long, the video to go over. I'm going to go over the rest of the Siu Nim Tau in the next video. Basically, I'm going to do that first part of the first form again, but this time with rooting. So I'm going to shift my weight, and I'll take you through exactly what I'm doing here. And I think it's an entirely valid way of practicing the Siu Nim Tau, right? You can do the Siu Nim Tau with a different structure, which is rooting. Chum Q, which is the second form, and the third form Bill G, you see a lot of shifting in that. But I think it's not. I think it's lacking. Both of them are lacking in proper rooting technique. So we're going to do the Siu Nim Tau here with rooting. So I start exactly the same way, coming back. So look, I'm going to shift my. So all I've done here is I'm rooting on the floor on my left side. Then I'm going to punch. So now again, elbow in. So I'm just doing exactly the same thing, but with a root this time. So my weight is over my back heel. So I come back to the middle here, still connected to the floor. So watch how I change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift my weight from here. So my weight now is going from this foot to the middle here, right? So now back in a base position. So the base is here. My center of gravity is right here. So now I'm going to shift that center of gravity there. Okay, so I've shifted it over to this side. Okay, and I'm starting to turn my body. Yes, so I've shifted my weight over to here without pulling my heels off the floor. Okay, then my hip is underneath my elbow, and then we're going to go over that bit again. So when I shift, I just make sure that I'm rooting here. I'm imagining the opponent's in front of me and I'm punching across their body. Back into the middle again. So look, here we go. Back into the middle. You're going to see me, look, I shifted my weight again. So the weight shifted over to this side now. Then the foot turns. I go into Tan Sao. Here, so again, I'm just practicing the first part of the first form with rooting. I'm just practicing. It's just a different set of skills. I wouldn't say skills, but it's a variation. And the more I practice Wing Chun, and the more kind of I understand about the art, the less I think that you need to keep to these orthodox you practice the form this way and this way only. You can practice the form in a number of different ways, I think, and you can experiment with it, and you can do what kind of how makes you feel comfortable when you're doing it. There we we go. So that's finished. Come back to the center here. So that's the end of the two parts of the end of the first part of the Siu Nim Tau, done in two different ways. And I'm sure there are other ways of doing this too. You know, there are other ways of practicing the Siu Nim Tau, but those are the two ways that I find to be helpful for me. The first, practicing it straight on like that, like this, with my weight distributed in you know, like this. I find it useful because I can really focus on the interconnectivity of my body. I can really focus on my shoulder position. I'm not thinking so much about shifting my weight around, or like, you know, it's a pretty comfortable stance. You can't take a huge amount of pressure standing like this, but again, it's really good for structure development. Here is just practicing it with both feet facing forward. So that's one thing I like about that. When you shift, when you go into this side here, I feel like it's not quite so much, you don't get that necessarily that feeling of interconnectivity quite as much, and the reason for that is because you're on one side. So when you're weighted on one side here, this side is almost, it's not it's active, but it's not, you're not putting any weight on it. So just, you don't quite get that same interconnectivity in your body when you do this. When you face forward, you really do get that interconnectivity. So when you're facing forward here, and you're sinking onto your hips and your legs are kind of pretty straight, that's the way, you know, that Jin, my instructor, teaches it, is to have your legs pretty straight and really sink your heels in. You know, but then everything's completely symmetrical, right? So, but when you shift, when you go on this side, everything is not quite symmetrical because your weight is on one side. It doesn't mean that it's not, that one way is not better than the other. It's just a different way of doing it, and I suggest practicing both. So anyway, I'll go over the rest of the form in another video, and then what I'll do is I'll post the whole form as one, so you can see that all the way through. Although there's kind of many different versions of it online, so there's not exactly a lack of Siu Nim Taus on YouTube for you to study up on. This is just the way that I do it. I may change the way I do it, next year or a couple of years time. I'm not completely fixed on this way of doing it necessarily. You've always got to be open to evolve, and I think that's where a lot of martial arts fall short, is that they don't evolve, and they don't kind of experiment with what they got. They don't update, what they're doing. Anyway, that's why, so I really respect my instructor, Jin, who's always innovating on Wing Chun and following his own path. And that's why I think everyone else, that's what you should do with martial arts, is kind of go on your own journey. Anyway, I will see you next time, and thanks for watching.